The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's call with CLIA. This is Charlie Sylvia, Vice President of Membership and Trade Relations. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to be on today's webinar. Today we have an exciting presentation on everything that's new and exciting at Cunard Line. And before I introduce our esteemed presenter today, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping so that we have an efficient webinar. The webinar will probably run about 40 minutes today, and we'll have 10 minutes for questions afterward. So please, at any time, use the questions module on the GoToWebinar platform, and we will collect all of your questions and answer them at the end. And if you have any specific questions, you can put them in there too, because we're going to be sending the report over to Cunard Line. So, but the questions we will be using are the ones that will benefit the entire group. Also, this webinar will be recorded, so if you have the opportunity to sell a cruise, please do so. We do have your back. This webinar will be recorded, and it will live on the CLIA YouTube channel, which Danielle Haney, my team leader in Washington, D.C., will enter the URL for the YouTube channel into the chat box momentarily, just so that you can start following CLIA at CLIA Global on YouTube and take advantage of all of these wonderful videos that we have for you. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce our esteemed presenter, who happens to be not only an industry leader, but also a very dear friend of mine. Steve Smotries is Director of Sales for Cunard Line North America. And in his 17 years in the cruise industry, Steve has led teams in various areas such as market planning, revenue management, and shore excursions before coming over to the sales world. Steve is passionate about sharing the brand story and likes to say that with Cunard Line, there is always a great story to be told or written. His own goes back to his senior prom, which was on the original Queen Mary Hotel in Long Beach, California. So you could say he was destined to represent this magnificent brand. So Steve, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for being here and for presenting to our CLIA members.
Well, thank you so much, Charlie, for the introduction, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you and share our mutual Cunard stories. And I'm really excited to be have another opportunity to talk to the members out there. It's an exciting time for Cunard. I think we had one other webinar, one or two already this year. So I thought for today's, what I would do is really talk about kind of everything that's new. Because we have so much exciting stuff going on. So I'm going to just jump in. And, I always say, as Charlie mentioned, Cunard, it always starts with a story. And I think a big part of that is because of our legacy. Cunard has been around 178 years. And, you kind of have to take a step back from that statement. Not only in the just cruise space alone, that's crazy, but just any company that's been around that long, it's really remarkable. Cunard has this famous history of famous ships, famous people that have been on board. Today, a very, very contemporary product in every respect. Very modern ships, one of the youngest luxury fleets in the industry, actually, and a very vibrant onboard experience. So much to do, so many unique experiences on board that really makes Cunard kind of in its own little category. So the first thing I want to talk about is when you do have a legacy brand, you want to pay a lot of respect to that legacy, but at the same time you do need to remain contemporary and relevant in today's luxury market. So we're constantly looking at what luxury guests are looking for today and what luxury is. And so, I just want to kind of share what we're doing with the brand quickly. And so we started looking at what other legacy brands out there, what they've been doing, how they've kind of transformed as time has gone on. So, this is an example right here of a Gucci ad from 10 years ago. And very interesting of kind of how that ad compares then to, well, I should go back. I think I lost one. I think I'm missing a slide, unfortunately, but this ad just really kind of shows a very stylized lifestyle shot of what Gucci is using today, and you compare that to 10 years ago, it's very, very different of how they're representing their brand. And when we look at other luxury brands like Burberry, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Coach, you can see kind of what those ads looked like years ago. And obviously those brands have really changed over time and how they represent themselves today. As you can see, some of these are not what you would expect from a Burberry ad there on the left. Or even Rolls-Royce with the car there, it's much more ominous. So it's very interesting how these brands are representing themselves today. So what kind of our next evolution now as a brand in Cunard is we've done this photo shoot end of last year, where we decided to make it a little bit more stylized. In the cruise space, you see a lot of ads that are ship shots and great destination shots, and those are all beautiful. But we thought with Cunard, it needs to be something with a little bit more flair. And so we did this, and you might see some of these in some magazine ads. We're strictly using them as branding, advertising. And so what I thought I'd do is here pair it with how we're also talking about the brand. So Cunard is very much a feeling that you get when you're on board. So first you're going to feel special, and the feel special really starts with our White Star service. This is a staple of the Cunard experience. It's one of those things that's made Cunard stand out in so many ways, the attention to detail that luxury guests are looking for today. That also extends to our ratio of crew to guests, where it's a 2-to-1 ratio, and in the large ship space, it's a very unusually large ratio. So you're always going to have somebody there to look after your needs. And then you're also going to feel special, especially if you're in the grill suites. The grill suites is really a dialed up luxury experience in every sense, whereas you're going to have amazing accommodations up to 2,200 square feet, where we have an apartment duplex that's just spectacular. If you're in the Queen's Grill, you're going to have a butler that's going to tend to your every need. And then, of course, you're going to have this very intimate and amazing dining experience in the Queen's Grill restaurants, where you're going to have wonderful options to choose from every night. But if you don't see something like on the menu, you can order something off the menu. Now, Charlie, I know you were just on board Queen Mary 2 doing a transatlantic crossing.
I sure was.
Very special occasion. And you had the opportunity to be in the Queen's Grill. And I'm just curious of what your experience was like.
Well, Steve, it just was extraordinary. Every aspect of it, from the priority embarkation to encountering and meeting my butler in the room, and just a warm welcome. It was just, the accommodations too were sumptuous. That's really what struck me the most, was the fact that the suites were, of course, well appointed as you would expect, but just the quality of everything, the bedding, the linens, the toiletries, every single aspect of the experience was so carefully designed. And the Queen's Grill, I have to be candid, the Chateaubriand that I had was one of the finest meals I have ever had at sea.
Fabulous.
They just make you feel so special. But what I noticed the most, Steve, was, and this might be a common point of view from a travel agent's perspective, I wasn't intimidated. I felt comfortable. Absolutely. It was elegant. It was I felt like it was very gala, you know what I mean? It was so special. But I always felt, and this was my first time in a Queen's Grill, in the grills, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, and I have sailed Cunard I have more than 100 nights on Cunard. I didn't feel stuffy. It felt very welcoming and very inclusive. So that was the most special experience, and I'm glad I spent my 50th birthday on Queen Mary 2.
Oh, we're so honored that you were on board, and I'm so pleased to hear that you had such a fantastic experience and you felt special. That's fantastic to hear. And we're talking about the Queen's Grill and how special that is, but you're going to feel special no matter where you are on the ship. As Charlie mentioned, it doesn't feel like somebody's more important than somebody else. If you're in one of the public rooms, you don't know who's at the Queen's Grill and who's in an inside cabin. That's not a priority in people's mind. Everybody's sharing in this wonderful experience that's going on. And that would include my next point there is the signature Cunard experiences, like the getting dressed up, the sense of occasion that Cunard provides, gala balls that you get to participate in. And that's for every guest on board. So every guest on board on Cunard is going to feel special. And then next up, you're going to feel inspired. So here's our next image, playing up the fun of, we have the largest libraries at sea. And we do have a large passenger, psychographic that really loves, they're intellectually curious and they want that stimulation. This kind of plays into our Insights program, which is our lecture series, where we have 4 to 6 spectacular lectures on every single sailing. And even though this picture is kind of playing that up, there's always the little wink of the eye, and she's got her martini glass there on top of the books, which I always get a kick out of looking at this picture and that bit of it. But then it also is about, feeling inspired is also about our fantastic itineraries. We really go all over the world. We curate these really spectacular itineraries, always changing them up year over year. And the exciting news there, which I'll get into a little bit more detail, is that we're returning to Alaska for the first time in 20 years.
Woohoo!
In 2019, it's really, really exciting that we're going to get to go back there. It's probably the one place in the world where cruises, there's a lot of cruise product that we actually weren't going. So that's big news for us. And then, of course, our special event voyages. This is something we started doing about 3 or 4 years ago, and we've been dialing up the program more and more. Things like wine-themed cruises and photography-themed cruises, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit later. And then finally, on board, you're going to feel free. This starts with our very spacious ships. You're never going to feel crowded, even though we're a large ship experience. We have one of the largest passenger to space ratios in the industry. So you're always going to feel, that you have plenty of space, that you're never crowded. And then, of course, time for you. Whether that's with all our sea days, especially if you're talking about a transatlantic crossing, you've got all these sea days to really enjoy everything the ship has to offer, or just time for yourself to unwind and detach from your busy life. So you're going to feel free in that respect. And then the flexibility. Even though we're known for the idea of getting dressed up, we do have a lot of flexibility on board if you don't want to get dressed up. And I'll get into a little bit more detail there. So why Cunard? Here's just some of the reasons, kind of summarizing. White Star service, the signature Cunard experiences, iconic journeys, amazing entertainment. We curate some fantastic performers to come on board. A lot of them are classically trained. Unique special event cruises, escape those uncrowded spaces, escape to uncrowded spaces, I should say. Freedom of choice, time for you, and a distinctive feeling on board Cunard. And I think that, the first sentence on that slide, I think is what really stands out, is Cunard is a unique vacation experience at sea. And if you'll notice, the word cruise isn't even in there, because I think Cunard is it's very unique. We get a lot of people that are first to cruise, believe it or not. A lot of people who don't really like the idea of cruising, but they see Cunard in a very different light. They see, especially a transatlantic crossing, they see that as an adventure and a voyage, and not necessarily a traditional cruise. So, I think that sentence really kind of sums it up in a lot of ways. So I mentioned the signature experiences on Cunard. Again, these are things that only happen on Cunard and make us unique and special. Of course, our iconic ships. Queen Mary II is still the largest ocean liner ever built. She's the only one carrying passengers today, and she continues that legacy of famous ships. Legendary voyages, as I mentioned, really going all over the world. We are the leader in world cruises. We were the first to do a world cruise. We've been doing world cruises more than 80 years, so longer than anyone else. Of course, our luxury grill suites, which we spoke about, the special event cruises. Afternoon tea, we are a British
Love it.
product. a British experience, so you have to have at 3 o'clock every day that afternoon tea. And of course, an English pub, which is a lot of fun, our Golden Lion pub. Of course, our gala evenings, which are spectacular, and that luxury for time. Now, as Charlie mentioned, it's not a stuffy experience. And, it's the number one thing when I'm talking to, especially, I would say, luxury advisors, is that, today's luxury guests, they don't want to put on a tie. They want to be casual and relaxed, and Cunard's just too stuffy for them. And it really isn't. I think it's a misrepresentation of the brand. I think that's one of the things with being a legacy brand is you can kind of get caught up in what people think of you in historical sense. But really, it's a really, especially during the day, completely relaxed. There's no dress code. People are in t-shirts and shorts throughout the ship. And in the evening, yes, there is a dress code, and that is part of who Cunard is. But as I mentioned, there are venues where you can go and be completely relaxed if you like. So our suggested dress, I think it's always good to put this into context. So on our gala evenings, now this is our formal nights. The dress code there is men are expected to wear a dark suit. You will see a lot of tuxedos. Dark suit and tie is required on gala evenings. For ladies, evening or cocktail dress, smart trousers suit, or formal separates is what we would expect in most of our venues on board. Now, gala evenings or our formal nights, on a 7-day sailing, you'll typically have 3 of those. So for the non-gala evenings is what we call smart attire. So I think this picture is a good representation of what smart attire looks like. For gentlemen, smart trousers with a shirt and a jacket. No tie required. As you can see, the gentleman on the left has looks like a nice sweater he's got there. You could even have like a polo under that jacket, but as long as you have that jacket on, no ties required. Some relaxed trousers is perfectly fine. And then for ladies, a nice blouse, skirts, stylish trousers and dresses. It is rather relaxed on those evenings, more than you might think. Now, what if you just, again, I've been alluding to this a little bit, so I really want to get into it because this is kind of the new part of our dress on board. What if you just, for the evening, I don't want to get dressed up. I just want to wear some jeans and some sneakers and maybe a polo. What can I do? Now, in the past, it was you could go up to the buffet. That was your one dining option. You could go up there and that's the one kind of venue that you could be relaxed. Now we've extended that. The casino is now casual. Our Golden Lion pub, our Corinthia Lounge on Queen Mary 2, and then our nightclub on G32 on Queen Mary 2, and the Yacht Club on Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria. These are completely casual venues every single evening, so you do have that option. The only thing that we ask is no shorts. Now, of course, the gala evenings is the big part of the Cunard experience. And I think having those relaxed venues, I think it's a nice option, especially when you are talking to your clients and those who are a little bit nervous about getting dressed up too much. When you tell them, hey, there are those relaxed venues, I think maybe that puts their mind at ease. But the reality is, once they get on board, they're going to get caught up in this experience because it is very, very special. And I always like to say, it's not just about getting dressed up for dinner, because the gala ball really comes to life in the Queen's Room. Now, these are a couple pictures I took last month when I was on Queen Victoria. The one on the left was from our black and white ball that we had, and you can see kind of how the Queen's Room was dressed up. And then on the right was our Roaring Twenties night, and as you can see, the decor kind of changed in the room. And I think this is a really nice touch of bringing that theme to life. And the Roaring Twenties is a new gala ball for us. And I was so pleased at how many people really, really got caught up in it. They had a costume contest that night. And, the flapper dresses were everywhere. The men were had vests going and hats going. And it was just spectacular how much people got caught up in that fun. Did you get to do that, Charlie, the Roaring Twenties?
Yeah, and you know what? A conversation that I to answer your question, yes, but a conversation that I overheard was there were two passengers who didn't have any attire,
Hmm.
and they were with they met another couple, and the couple was dressed to the nines. And you know what the couple said? And this is the God's honest truth. The couple who was dressed up said to the other couple, "Oh, our travel agent made sure that we didn't forget to pack these things for the ball."
That's
And
right.
and you know what? The other couple said, "Oh, we didn't book through a travel agent."
Oh,
So
I love
it's
it, Charlie. I
and
love
you know
that.
what? I saved that anecdote for this presentation because that's just another layer of value. The balls are absolutely spectacular, Steve.
And that's a great example to use, because, you know, especially a guest on Cunard, I think our past guests appreciate the relationship and the service that our travel agent partners provide. That's where we'll take the bookings direct, and our customer service team is fantastic, but they're not going to have that same experience of booking and getting informed of what their cruise is going to be all about unless they're working with one of our travel agent partners, and that's what we prefer them to do always. So I appreciate that story so much. So moving on, so the gala balls, don't forget about them. We will let you know what the themes are ahead of time. There's also a masquerade ball. They're so much fun, and I think people really, really love those opportunities of getting dressed up and having those fun experiences like that. Even for, like, I've noticed, even for younger crowds, I go back to the Roaring Twenties party. Gatsby parties are such a popular thing right now, and what better place could you have to have as a venue than one of the queens at sea? Now, as I mentioned, we having the Golden Lion now being one of our casual venues in the evening. So another thing that we have changed. Now, Golden Lion Pub always had a pub lunch. That's been a staple for a long time at no additional charge. What we've added now, since we made this a casual option in the evening, is a gastro pub dinner option there as well. So you can be casual and have a different dinner option as well. So I took these four pictures in the middle when I was on Queen Victoria. I went one evening with some people I was traveling with, and we did the pub dinner and wanted to experience that. And I have to tell you, I love the pub lunch. This blew that out of the water. It was so great, so much fun. The food was fantastic. So, if you've got clients going on, tell them, don't miss the gala night, I would say. But one of the smart attire nights, go and have the pub dinner. It's a lot of fun. Next up, I just want to share some of the other new things that we have on board. So this is our new concept bar and signature cocktails. Now, gin is I think one of those retro spirits that's come back, and so we've really dialed that up. We have a new concept called Gin and Fizz on board. We have signature Cunard gins that have been designed specifically, one named after each of our ships. Their flavors are kind of inspired by the regions that particular queen sails to a lot. So, for example, Queen Mary II, when she does her world cruises, she tends to do a lot of exotic ports. So that gin is a little bit has got these very interesting spices, exotic spices to it. So it's a lot of fun. The Gin and Fizz bar. These are some pictures I took when I was on Queen Victoria. We have 40 different gins to choose from there. There's a gin experience that I did, as you can see there on the right, where they give you a little platter of different things to munch on as you're doing it. You get to taste some different gins. They make the gin cocktails and show you how they do them. They teach you about the gins. It was like a 2-hour experience, and it was spectacular. We had so much fun doing it. So, again, these are some very interesting experiences that you only find on board Cunard. I mentioned our Insights program, but there's also these other experiences like, only on Cunard you'll experience these. We have Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts send acting troupes on board, and they'll do little performances here and there throughout the ship, but every day in the morning in the Queen's Room, they do an acting lesson, which is a lot of fun. Of course, we have the largest planetarium at sea. The first one that ever happened, cruise experience out there that now has added a planetarium, but I don't think it's going to be quite the same as the experience on Queen Mary 2. And then fun things like fencing lessons that you can do in the Queen's Room. So some really fun and different experiences. Now, I mentioned the special event voyages. Just want to give you a little example of some of these because this is something we're dialing up and doing more and more of every year. We're in the third year of doing Transatlantic Fashion Week at Sea. This has been a huge hit with our guests where we have speakers from and icons from the fashion world come on board and speak. We have models that come aboard and we do runways. And then we finish in New York at the beginning of New York Fashion Weeks. And such a cool experience there. But just some of the other examples, we celebrate Independence Day on our ships. Queen Mary 2 is typically up in Boston for the 4th of July to see the fireworks over Boston Harbor. In 2019, Queen Elizabeth is going to be in Los Angeles. We're hoping we're going to be able to dock her up close to the original Queen Mary, and we'll be doing fireworks there as well. So we always do some celebrations around that. But things like World Space Week, celebrating National Symphony Orchestra and having them on board. Our Voyage Divine, where we have speakers from the wine world on board, and then we visit wine regions in Spain and Portugal with special shore excursions going and visiting these old wineries. Big Band Ball, Literature Festival. There's really all these really spectacular special event voyages that your guests can enjoy as well. Now, a little sneak preview I'm going to give you here. We were the first one to partner with Canyon Ranch Spa, and we've had that on Queen Mary 2 since she came on board, but we only had it on Queen Mary 2. So I'm really, really excited to announce that we are extending that Canyon Ranch is going to manage all of our spa experiences on all 3 of our ships. And that's going to be rolling out on Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria. I believe it's going to be this November, but there's going to be a lot of exciting announcements coming regarding that. So we're really, really excited to expand our partnership with Canyon Ranch Spa. And I happen to be at Travel Week this week in Las Vegas, and I had the pleasure of getting together with some of the folks from Canyon Ranch and doing a little brainstorming of how we can kind of get some synergy going with our 2 brands. So that's really exciting that we have that coming up. Wanted to give you also a sneak preview of what we're calling Project Halifax, which is our first new Cunard ship to come in 12 years. She'll arrive in 2022, brand new ship. She's going to be about 113,000 gross tons, and she'll carry about 3,000 passengers. So this is really, really exciting for us to have a new Cunard ship joining the fleet. She will be, get ready for this number, the 249th ship to carry the Cunard flag. And really, when you think about that, how amazing is it there's been that many Cunard ships. So we're super excited about welcoming that new queen yet to be announced. We're hoping next year we'll have some great news to share with you about that project. For you travel professionals, I really wanted to just share some different ways that you can position Cunard. I think it provides some really interesting selling propositions. So some examples here. A crossing is a great option to package with a land-based vacation in Europe. I know a number of travel professionals that have had tremendous luck doing this, and actually talked to one last night who has sold several packaged with a river cruise in Europe. So they're taking Queen Mary 2 across the Atlantic, and then once they get there, they're going to take a train or some other transportation and then get on a river cruise. So, what a fantastic fit that is, because we think those audiences really fit together well. As you all know, it's a great alternative to flying. A lot of people don't want to fly, but still want to go to Europe and see all there is that Europe has to offer. And Queen Mary 2, crossing the Atlantic in style. Once you arrive in Southampton, no jet lag. You get off the ship and you're ready to go and enjoy your European adventure, whatever you're choosing to do. So great option there. Of course, it's connecting 2 very iconic cities, New York City and London. And again, it's just a classic experience of going back and forth between those 2 cities. And there really is a large audience out there looking for that sense of occasion. For a lot of people, how many opportunities do you get to get dressed up for an event, other than weddings and things like that? And Cunard provides this opportunity to really have this special experience at sea. Cunard transcends cruising in so many ways. There's so many people that come up to me and they tell me their Cunard story, and sometimes it's their ancestors came over on a Cunard ship, or their first cruise experience was on a Cunard ship. They had an ancestor that was in World War II, and Cunard ships were used to transport troops. So there's all these ways that I think people can connect to their family history. And there is something very, very special when you are at sea and you're in the middle of the Atlantic, and whatever that connection is to your family, you can really, really feel it. And so I think it provides this really interesting experience in that respect. And of course, it's very much a bucket list experience for so many people. For experienced cruisers, it's one of those things you have to do. And it's a great opportunity for affinity groups. With all those sea days, it provides this really great opportunity. We've got great meeting space that's very flexible. So a lot of different ways that you can position that. And a little note there to the right, I just wanted to mention that we were named for the third year in a row #1 mega ship ocean line by Travel and Leisure Reader's Choice. So really proud to receive that award. Of course, the grill suite experiences, Charlie and I already kind of talked about that at length, but it is really spectacular. So many amenities that it offers between the butler service, the priority embarkation and disembarkation, tender service. You can see the list there. The list goes on and on. It is just such a special experience in so many ways. And then on Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria, there's this great alfresco dining option that sits in between the Princess Grill and the Queen's Grill, and so that's one of those things that sometimes people forget, that there's this again special experience for grill guests that's available. As I mentioned, we're going back to Alaska. I want to give you a little bit of information about this because I think it's really, really important that we get the message out there about how our experience on Cunard is different in Alaska, because I know there's so many choices up there for guests, but we are doing something that's a little bit different. So it's going to be Queen Elizabeth. She's going to be sailing there between May and June in 2019. She's doing 4 10-day round-trip sailings out of Vancouver, so the air becomes very simple. And these itineraries, they're very, very port-rich. 6 ports where we'll do the quintessential Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, but we're also doing ports that you don't always get options to, like Icy Strait Point. So, great opportunities to do bear watching. Sitka, which, I actually been to Alaska several times, never been to Sitka, but I've been told is such a beautiful port to go to. And then Victoria, which is usually a half-day port, but we're doing full-day calls in all of these ports. So you really get time to really enjoy everything the port has to offer. And then, of course, 2 glaciers as well. So it's a pretty special and I think different itinerary than anything else up there. And then we've also partnered with Rocky Mountaineer to do rail experiences. And we think these experiences line up really well with each other. And so these rail experiences, either 3 or 5 night to Calgary to see Banff and Lake Louise. And I have not had the pleasure of being on Rocky Mountaineer. I'm sure a number of you maybe have experienced it. I hear it's just a wonderful experience. And I think rail experiences paired with Cunard, they really go hand in hand. And so we're really excited about this new partnership.
And Steve, if I can just jump in for a quick second about that. For travel agents, travel advisors on the call who may not be familiar with Rocky Mountaineer, they are absolutely the definitive rail service. They are the Rolls-Royce of what they do. So, Steve, I didn't even realize this until you just announced it just now, but that is such a perfect alignment of brands.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are so excited. We think there's more and more of these opportunities to find partners that make a lot of sense with Cunard. It's good sharing of audiences, our audience sharing that with Rocky, Rocky sharing their audience with us, and giving guests the opportunity to discover these experiences that are right kind of in their wheelhouse of what they're interested in. And then just some other things that make Cunard different in Alaska, and different ways that you can kind of talk about Cunard as an option to your clients that are interested in going to Alaska. And the value is very good. As I mentioned, we're only doing 4 sailings in 2019, and that's because we really believe that we needed a year to kind of ease our way into that market, to get the awareness up with our travel agent partners, as well as our clients. And the plan is, though, for in 2020 to be doing a full season of these similar sailings. So more news coming for there. I'm going to preview that our 2020 program release is coming very soon. So all of our itineraries, except for Alaska, will open for past passengers on September 24th. And then for the public, it goes on sale the next day on September 25th. And then for Alaska in 2020, that's going to go on sale November 5 for our past passengers, and then, of course, the next day on November 6 to the public. So just keep those dates in mind. That's coming right around the corner, and so some exciting news that we will be sharing when it comes to that. Wanted to also remind you all the combinability of the Cunard offers. We really try to make it simple. So everything outside of final payment everything's combinable. Our group program is very rich. And if you book one person on a group, you're going to get whatever the amenities are that we've set up on that. So you don't have to worry about hitting certain thresholds. That being said, if you are able to get enough people on board, our tour conductor ratios are very reasonable. They go anywhere from one for 8 all the way up to 1 for 16. So there is a lot of opportunity there to earn more. But all of our limited time offers are all combinable there with our group program. They're always combinable. Things like our cruise sale, which we have an onboard credit component and a bonus commission, that's also combinable. Our military benefit for our veterans out there, that's another onboard credit that's also can be combinable. And then if your guests are on board, it's a no-brainer that they should go in, put down a deposit for a future cruise. It's fully refundable if they decide not to use it, and that business automatically goes back to you. And again, you can combine all of these things, can layer on top of each other, so the value proposition becomes very, very rich for you and for your client. Also want to remind you, if you really want to become super knowledgeable with the Cunard product, please go in and take part in the academy. Become a Commodore. If you go through the whole training and become a Commodore and sell one Cunard cruise, you get a free cruise for yourself to go and experience Cunard and really see it come to life before your eyes. So I strongly encourage you to go in and take part in the academy. You go through our travel agent portal, onesource.com, and it's pretty self-explanatory once you're in there. We use the same platform as Princess Cruises, so if any of you that may have already done the Princess Cruises training, the Cunard training happens in the same environment. Also want to let you know about our latest offer. We've got 2 offers in the market right now, really rich offers. Our summer savings event, which is savings up to 30% off launch fares, and then guests also get free gratuities. That's in every single category. So really spectacular when we're able to offer free gratuities in the balconies and below. And then our grill guests. Most offers now for grill guests were not all inclusive. However, pretty much you're going to be able to bet that every single limited time offer, grill guests are going to get free drinks and free gratuities. So check that out. And now another really great offer that we have in market is Drinks on Us. Now here, this is something we really don't do a whole lot. Here we're offering drink package for our balcony bookings as well. So this one requires a $200 non-refundable deposit, But so we've got two offers in the market that are both very rich, and depending on really what's kind of important to your client, there's something there for everybody. So I urge you to take a look at that. Also, you can go to OneSource and get more detail and actual fares and the offer or the dates being offered. So check out OneSource and get that information. Last but not least, I want to let you know about our Facebook page. Now, this is something we've been working on for about a year. This is travel agent facing only. This is for your audience only. We want to use this as a different channel to communicate to you all. So if you're on Facebook, follow us. The address is right up there. It's at Cunard NAM Sales. Again, this is travel agent facing only. We're putting so much content out there now, whether it's things going on board the ships, tips for selling, our latest offers, some really fun videos we're doing in there. Charlie helped us out and when he was on board and put a bunch of stuff on his Facebook page that we were able to share on this Facebook page as well. So it's really, we've gotten some great feedback. So please go out there. It's a really great opportunity for you to learn more and more about Cunard and be able to keep up to date on everything that's going on board. Now we're doing a big push right now to get our followers up. We're a little over 1,000. Once we get up to 1,200, I have agreed to spend the night in the notorious B340.
Oh my goodness.
Which is the most haunted cabin on the original Queen Mary in Long Beach. Now, they had closed this cabin for 30 years because of all over the years. There were so many disturbances. People complained. People would say they saw something or something moved. So they boarded it up for 30 years. And so it was interesting about the way this idea, I got to tell this quick story, the idea that this came to is we were actually shooting some video content down the Queen Mary a few weeks back. And a good friend of ours, the Commodore down there, Commodore Everett Horde, he was taking us around the ship, and he's such a great friend of ours. And I asked him, which cabin is it that's been boarded up for so long that's haunted? And he told me, you know what, we just opened it up because there is some appeal for people to go in there and be in the most haunted cabin. And I was with my PR team, and they said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to push the Facebook page. So I guess I get to be the guinea pig and get to spend the night. But I think I'm a little nervous about it, but I think we'll have fun with it. We're going to do some Facebook Live that night and things like that. So follow us, help us get those followers up. Once we get to 1,200, then we're going to announce when we're going to have this really fun and a little nerve-wracking evening for me, I guess.
and Steve, I have every faith that you'll do great. But for everyone on the call, we put in the chat box the link to the Cunard NAM sales Facebook page. So could everyone just click on that link right now, if you don't mind, and just click like, and then you'll see there's an option for notifications. So you want to make sure that you're following. If you click the following and make sure that you see the notifications, you can click on see first and they'll pop right up there. So you don't miss anything on Cunard.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I appreciate that plug. Again, I just think this is it's a fun, interactive way to that we can all kind of engage you, and then you can communicate to me as well. So, I'm on it every day checking it. I get a lot of travel agent partners that, ask me questions, either through a private message or they'll post their comments on some of the posts we do. So it's fun and very interactive, and I've found that we've had some really, really great feedback about it. So, I think it's a win for everybody. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to, I'm first going to say thank you all for your partnership. Thank you for taking some time today. I know you're all so busy, and it really says a lot when you take the time to listen to a webinar like this, and it's to take that kind of time and invest in your knowledge of all the products. And I know there's so many products for you all to learn. We really, really, really appreciate that commitment on your behalf. So with that, I'll turn it back to Charlie, see if we have any questions out there.
Absolutely, Steve. And we're going to have the head of my team in Washington, Danielle Haney, will be asking the questions in just a moment. But I just want to thank you, Steve, for taking the time to be on this call. And I also want to share, you know, what's a great trend that we're seeing? I just read an article in the New York Times, and this is directly related to developing affinity groups to sail on Cunard Line. I bumped into some people on my crossing on Queen Mary 2 that were all part of a bookshop. And you know what? The word out there, the trend is that bookstores are making a huge comeback because they're not big ones like Barnes and Noble and stuff, but they're smaller boutique bookstores that create communities of customers with book clubs. And they booked on Queen Mary 2 because it has the largest, more than 8,000 books, largest library at sea. And they brought their book club on board, and there were like 50 of them. So it's always amazing. Steve, before we ask the questions of the advisors, what are some of the affinity groups that Cunard Line is seeing, besides obviously this new trend with book clubs?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We get a lot of like bridge clubs, a lot of just special interest, a lot of literature groups.
Knitters and crocheters, I ran into them on board as well.
Did you really?
Yeah, they called it a stitch and bitch cruise.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
We've even had like sci-fi fan groups that were traveling together. So it's really interesting, kind of this huge spectrum of people and groups and special interests. And like you said, and I mentioned earlier, with all those sea days, you really have that opportunity, to take part in that, whatever that activity is, or just have that time to kind of bond together. And, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that sense of community. And I think, we're in such a technology age now where technology has replaced things, but remember, we're human beings, and it's human connection. And I think that's why we saw, this whole technology, they were saying, oh, travel agents are dinosaurs now because the internet and everything like that. But again, it all comes back to we're about human connection, and those things are fads. It always comes back to human connection, no matter what it is, and community is a great way of putting it. So, that's a really interesting story that you told about that news story.
And ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, Steve and I are going to sit down, and we're going to have a real deep conversation in a podcast coming a few weeks down the road. We got to figure out schedules, but we're going to do a podcast speaking specifically to the transatlantic crossings because we really want to help you take advantage of this tremendous opportunity, because it is. So without further ado, let me introduce our trade relations specialist, the head of my team in Washington, D.C., Danielle Haney, who is going to facilitate your questions. Danielle?
Great.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Charlie. Hi, Steve. We do have a couple of questions. The first one is from Robin, and she wants to know, what is the best time of year to take a transatlantic crossing? And for those who do take it, say on the off season or in the fall, what are some tips for guests that have motion sickness issues?
It's a great question. Well, I think it's first important to note that Queen Mary 2 is, as I mentioned, she's the largest ocean liner ever built. She's the only one carrying passengers today. And she was specifically built for the transatlantic crossing. And it's a very different design. If you compare Queen Mary 2 to any other cruise ship out there, and everything else in the industry is a cruise ship, the distinctive differences I think that are important to note in design is, if you look at her from the front, she's got a very narrow V-shaped hull. She's also got a very deep draft, meaning she sits very deep in the water. Her hull is about twice the thickness of steel of a typical cruise ship, and she has very special stabilizers. So she's a very heavy ship, a very stable ship. Those stabilizers are specifically made for that as well. And I always tell this story that the very first time I took a transatlantic crossing, it was December 2013, and we had 18 to 20 foot swells for the first 5 days. Now that's unusual to get that kind of rough weather, but what's amazing to think about, this image is indelible in my memory, is being at dinner in the Britannia dining room, which is low on the ship, this really beautiful 2-story room, floor to ceiling, large windows, and you look outside and these waves are crashing up against the window and it looks like we're underwater, but my wine glass is barely moving on the table. What you get used to, obviously you're going over waves, so you're still feeling the up and down, but you're not getting any of the side to side. So it's an extreme example of what that ship is capable of, and no matter what time of year. But the best time, if you just really want that smooth sailing, she sails between May and January across the Atlantic. Very regular service back and forth. And during the summertime, the Atlantic is very calm. You rarely get any kind of rough weather, and what you do on Queen Mary 2, you're not going to feel it. It starts to get a little bit sketchier in the North Atlantic when you hit about October, I would say, and then sometimes you might get some rough weather. The other thing that Queen Mary 2 has going for her, she's the fastest passenger ship. So if there's some very severe weather, she can change her route and go a different route, and not fall off schedule. We just make the ship go a little bit faster. So we have that to our advantage as well. Now, for those guests who really are sensitive, of course, there's things like the patches, or if you don't want to do something like that, there's the wristband I see a lot of people having, which is using the pressure points. But also, I think for the extreme situations, they do have a shot that they can provide, and it usually, once guests have that, they're good for 7 days. So there's a lot of different options. I don't think people should be scared away about sailing across the North Atlantic, because we have a lot of ways to kind of mitigate that.
And Steve, I put into the chat box an official Cunard line video back when Queen Mary 2 was remastered that show the stabilizers, because, ladies and gentlemen, the average cruise ship has stabilizers of about 25 feet. Queen Mary 2 has 40-foot stabilizers, and they contribute to the smoothness of the vessel, the sureness of the vessel. I just got back, and you couldn't even tell that we were at sea, quite frankly, because I went on a peak week. But even in the partial and off seasons, these stabilizers do tremendous. So show your clients that video that shows Paula Laughlin, the entertainment director on board Queen Mary 2, showing you the underside of the ship. It's so impressive.
Thank you for that. That's great.
Awesome. Okay, next question. So this question is from Cindy Beach, and she says that she is a luxury travel agent, and so are her clients. What sets Cunard apart from other luxury brands, especially guests who would travel in the Britannia class?
So that's an interesting question. I think I get this question asked a lot about, kind of how is Cunard luxury? How do you define luxury? And I think, it's relative to kind of what you view luxury. I mean, I think there's a lot of different layers of luxury. Most of the luxury cruise experiences today are smaller ship experiences, and I know a lot of luxury guests are looking for that, and that's great. And it's great in this industry that we have. Our guests have so many different options to choose from. I think what Cunard provides that's very interesting is if you're in the grills, you're going to get a high-end luxury experience in every sense. We talked about earlier the butlers, this anything goes dining experience. It's really fantastic. Now you're in Britannia, it's not going to be quite as much, but if you're in the Britannia dining room, it's still a fantastic dining experience, and everything on the ship is designed for that person in the very top suite. So it does feel very luxurious, but the price points in Britannia can be, depending on the time of year. Say you're booking a crossing in October, November, the price points can be very reasonable. You could get a balcony potentially for under $1,200 per person. And, I think there's a lot of guests that have kind of those luxury tastes, but maybe can't always afford a luxury experience. I think that's a good option for them. For the true luxury guests, they should always be looking at the grills, because that is going to dial it up for them quite a bit. But I think what, again, in the luxury space, what makes Cunard different, back to that question, is I think being on a large ship experience, you're going to get all the entertainment that only a large ship can provide, more options and more things to do on board. The nightlife is very vibrant. There's something for everybody to do. So I think that's what kind of sets it apart.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question is from Avery Wilson, and she wants to know, are there any opportunities to arrange for a ship tour for travel agents when the ships are docked in the U.S.?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the best option is in New York City. Queen Mary 2 home ports there most of the year from about May until January because she is doing those transatlantic crossings, but she also does Canada, New England, and Caribbean and a few other things. So she's in Red Hook in Brooklyn, right outside of New York City, quite a bit of the year. And every time she's in port, we have a number of business development managers there in the tri-state area, and they do host travel agent events on board where we do a ship tour, we do a lunch, sometimes we do a tea experience. So if you're going to be in the New York area, reach out to your business development manager. If you don't know who that is, you can reach out to me as well, and we will connect you with them. It's especially to do it on Queen Mary 2 is special. We also get our ships down a couple times a year to Florida, so typically Port Canaveral, down in Fort Lauderdale as well. And now we're going to have them up on the West Coast, which is rare. In 2019, we're going to have the ships will be in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Vancouver. So if you're in any of those markets or able to get to any of those markets, look and see when our ships are going to be there. More times than not, we are having a travel agent event when the ship is in port. So absolutely, if you'd like to go, we will definitely get you on.
And folks, don't forget that we just recently had a CLIA 2-day live training event in New York City, and Queen Mary 2 was one of the ship inspections. So don't disqualify the CLIA live trainings, because we always try to tie them into ship inspections. And Steve, thank you so much for allowing us to tour the ship during our recent training.
Oh, I'm so glad that worked out, and you had two of my fantastic team, and Gloria Mills and Alicia Oliphant, that hosted the event. And Alicia is actually a local New Yorker, and I always say that she is the greatest ambassador for the Cunard line. She's been on the product for a long time, and so I was glad that she was able to host that for you.
Yeah, it was a tremendous success, and the agents absolutely loved it. So thanks again.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question is from, this is more of a comment. Nicole Oxley wants to know if you could go back to the slide with the Cunard training with instructions on how to get access.
Absolutely. So it's here, the instruction's not there, but if you just go to, you could do a search just for Cunard OneSource, and that will take you to our travel agent portal, OneSource, which we share with Princess Cruises. And once you get on there, you'll see on the very front page, once you log in, the option for the Cunard Academy. And so, yeah, again, urge you to go in and do that.
Perfect. Okay, it looks like we have time for one more question, and I believe this is the last question, so perfect. Christy Heidner asked, what are some recommendations for children activities on board?
Oh, great question. We do have I think this surprises people, but we do have a full kids program on board for 3 different age groups. So we have a teen center, and then we have, I believe it's 8 to 12-year-olds, and then under 8, we go as young as 6 months. Now, what's really cool here is, obviously the evenings of getting dressed up, it's kind of a night out of town experience. Parents can have their children looked after during the evening, so they can go have their experience, their gala evening, and enjoy that. And then they'll have the pager in case they need to reach them. But we're well staffed and have fantastic care. Lots of activities for the kids to do. They have their own private little area with a small little splash pool and things like that. But they're really, I think it surprises people that we do have a very robust kids program on board.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. It looks like that is our last question.
Well, Steve, on behalf of the entire team at CLIA, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And do you have any last words for our attendees?
Again, I just want to thank you all for your partnership, And just for I think travel agents are really, really special. I don't just say that because we're in the industry, because, and I think we're all proud of being in this industry, that, we're creating memories for our guests, and the relationships that you guys provide for our clients. It just enriches that experience that much more. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for taking the time today. And thank you, CLIA, for your support.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Folks, again, if you want to follow Cunard, we put in the chat box the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cunard, NAM, sales with an S. So please make sure to follow Steve on Facebook, like him, and follow him. And thanks, everybody. Thanks for being on the call, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.